Hey guys, hope you're doing well. This might be my last one. I'm gonna try to sum everything up and add in some stuff that I didn't add in before. I'm gonna definitely knock off that voodoo thing and the mattress story like I was telling you about before. But I want to start off by saying that in the whole time of my life, I feel like I've been protected. I feel like if I'm alone, that like later on I learn or I feel that God was with me, and I've learned that He's helped me get through just about everything, even whenever I wasn't a believer. I don't know if it's because I'm special. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's just because He loves us all and He wants the best for us. But in Psalm 121, 7 through 8, there's a promise from the Lord that He will guide you and protect you from all your comings and goings now and forevermore, that He will protect you from harm and evil. And I definitely feel like that sums up what He's done in my life. But just to start out, I'll start before I was born. My mom, she used to go skydiving a lot, and she'd go tandem, which is basically where she'd go by herself when she jumps out of the plane. And I don't know if it's the same way now, but they'd go up in the air however many thousands of feet, and then she'd climb out on the wing and just hold on, and then she'd let go. And she had to have gone 10, 20 times on her own. And one of the times her parachute didn't open. She was able to get the reserve going though, so thankfully she made it through that, and eventually here I came. When she was pregnant and giving birth, I was actually breech, so my feet were first, and at that time they were freaking out because the umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck, almost like I was, trying to unalive myself or something. Maybe I just knew that the world was going to be too hard, but maybe it was a spiritual warfare even then, just trying to make sure I don't come out into the world and eventually go through a bunch of stuff and share it with people and maybe change someone's life, even if it's just one person. But all of that, I think if something had gone wrong during that time, then I wouldn't be here, or my mom wouldn't have been here anymore. And so I just want to share with you some stories about how my life was pretty wild and how I defied death many times, in my opinion, and how God was with me, just keeping me afloat the whole time. So when I was a kid, I've been in, oh gosh, so many car crashes. When I was a kid, I was in my grandma's car while she was driving, and she crashed, and I had been laying across the back seat just sleeping, and she thought I was dead because the back windshield had been knocked out and all the glass was over me, and she couldn't wake me up for anything. And so she was just crying, like, how am I going to tell her mom? And luckily I woke up and I was like, what happened? I didn't even know. But over the years, once I started driving, I was probably in like 10 accidents at least. And I always walked out harm-free, thank God. Even when I wasn't believing anymore, I'd still gotten in a lot of car crashes, and I was fairly protected, I'd say. One time when I was in my 20s, I was with my friends and we were wakeboarding in the canal bank, which I would not suggest anybody do. We all kind of went off our boards and like fell off and started floating backwards in the canal towards the other side. and all of us couldn't get out of the canal. We were trying to climb up the wall and it wasn't working, and we were just like, we didn't want to hit the other side because that was where the water would just churn off into the other part of the canal. But luckily we all got out. I was like scraping the wall with my nails, trying to climb out, and I eventually got really close to the end and got out. So thank God I did, because if not, I may not be here. Things started getting a little bit more weird once actually, first, before I even go into my spiritual warfare, when I was beginning to be a Christian again, one time I had been jet skiing in the ocean, and I was like, oh, what are those waves out there? I want to go and jump those waves. So I'm just like riding along, and I get out there, and I'm the only one out there, and everybody else is like over closer to shore, and they're waving me back in, and I'm like, it's okay, I'm okay. And then I look around me, and all surrounding me was just a school of sharks, and I was freaking out, like, how am I gonna get out of this alive? But I did. That was probably like 20 years ago. And then I also, one time I was with my friend, and we were driving around smoking, which I would not suggest doing either. We were smoking weed, and we had parked somewhere to smoke, and I kind of just went up this hill in my car. I was driving, and afterwards I was getting ready to leave, and instead of pushing the reverse, I went into drive to go forward, and I was so close to driving into a pool full of cow manure. So I'm glad I didn't die like that. That would have been a pretty crappy way to go. But over the years, like I said, I ended up returning to my faith, especially when I was going through so much with my roommate / stalker and everybody at the apartments there. But when I moved back after being homeless for a while, I ended up moving back into my grandma's and then into my parents' house. And when I was there, I was having real bad spiritual warfare. I don't exactly know why, but I know it's because I was trying to become a Christian again and trying to go back to church and just do things right. And I felt everything weighing on me, like trying to pull me back to how I was before and what my beliefs were before, and make me almost think that God wasn't with me. But now I know he was definitely with me the whole time. So the mattress story, I'll talk about that first. I was at my parents', and this is when I had first moved back in, and I'm still living there now, unfortunately. I have kind of made myself a little too comfortable here, but I also don't want to leave them, so there's that. But I had been living here, and I had been hearing my voices from schizophrenia. It had all kind of got really bad around the stalker issues and being homeless. It just really made my mind go berserk. And I was just laying in my room one day, and for the longest time, I kept thinking that like the devil was in the attic, because I kept hearing voices, or I kept hearing like pounds and like just weird noises all the time. And so I thought someone was staying in the attic, or that God was mad in the attic at me, or that like the spiritual warfare was going on. And that was that. So I had all these dreams growing up that the airplane was coming for my family, and every time that it came, I missed the flight. And so there was a random day when I was on my couch sleeping in my room, and I heard like my voices, but it sounded like it was coming from out of the attic. And I heard what I thought was my mom's voice saying, go now. And so I immediately thought, like, she must mean go to the airport. So I get up and I pack a bunch of stuff, and I tried to bring my cat with me. And so I was going to open the window and get her from the outside. And instead, she just ran away. And I was so nervous, like, I'm not going to make it in time. Like, I got to get my cat back in the room or get her and protect her. But she ran too far and I didn't know where she went. And so I just kind of lost hope. And I've always hated myself for that. But I ended up taking a box of my stuff, like in a Tupperware box, towards the airport. I just kind of, first I got my dad's hunting gear and put on some camouflage pants. It was like, I think it may have even been coveralls, so it covered my whole body. And then he had this mask that I put on that had just like the eyes cut out, and it was just like leaves. So pretty weird to have seen me driving around in that. But I had drove over to the airport, which was like on the other side of this river from our house. And so it took a while to get there, but I parked by the river on the other side of the river from my house. And I just kind of started walking up Airport District. And if you knew my town, you would know that Airport District is like the most dangerous place you can go. So I was kind of freaking out, and it was like pretty early in the morning, maybe like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I had my box of clothes, and I was just like trucking up the way and didn't know what I was gonna do. And I would just be hearing my voices saying like, turn this way, go this way, follow the cars. So eventually I got down the street, probably the worst part of that part of town. And I, for some reason, was thinking, oh, there's going to be a truck that I got to get in, like a moving truck or some kind of truck, because I had this key that my friend had gave me for a lock, and I thought maybe he gave me the key. And so I was like trying to put the key into different trucks. This is really whenever my insanity was at its worst for the most part. But I eventually ended up climbing in the back of a truck of some random person, and there was a mattress in the back of the truck. And so I got under the mattress, and it was kind of like tore out from that side. So I had my hands like on bars above my head, and I had my feet at the bottom of the mattress, and I just hiding there. And this was again after all the stuff with my stalker and the gangster guy, and after finally getting free from that, luckily, even though I ratted on them and stuff. But I was in the truck under the mattress, and I stayed there for about 7 hours. And during that time, it was pretty crazy. I don't really know what all had happened, but within the first like hour or so of laying there, someone drove by on a bike or rode by, and they said, "Snitches get stitches." Like they just yelled it really loud when they were driving by it or riding by it. Sorry. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think that's the gangster guy, and I don't know. And so I was freaking out, and I was just hiding there. And then I was like hearing my voices say, like, oh, I'd hear like things people had said to me, just repeating to me. And like my friend had one time said, oh, you would. And so I was seeing me sit by the wood, me put my back up to the wood. And so I was like against the wood of the truck in the back, and it said like, oh, look through the hole. And so I looked through this hole that was in the truck, and I saw a car across the street from me, and there was like 2 people outside, but I couldn't really see them. I could just hear them, and it sounded like my aunt's voice, and it sounded like they were saying, "Get in the trunk, get in the trunk." And then they're like, "Oh, she doesn't get it." And so they just ended up driving away. And it scared me because at one time that gangster guy had said, get in the trunk of this fake cop car, oddly enough. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And anyways, so I'm under this mattress and I'm like in hour 3 now, and I'm sitting there just crying, and someone came up to the back of the truck and must have seen me, and they said, are you okay? And I was like, no. And I started crying more and shaking my head no. And so more time goes by, and then I'm in there thinking, like, I'm having like all my life play in reverse, and I'm seeing that like little things are starting to add up, almost like there was like a story weaved in through all my stories. And it felt like God was showing me the end of my life, like what had happened in my life. And so I was, part of me was thinking like, I'm going to be going into witness protection, and so I need to fake my death, and this was how they're going to do it. And so like I was laying back there and I heard somebody come around the truck, and I heard like something getting poured on the mattress, and I was thinking they're pouring lighter fluid on the mattress, and like I started like almost hallucinating. I don't know if it's because of fear or if it was just because something else was happening that they were doing to me, but it was probably just a little bit of spiritual warfare and fear mixed together. Oh my gosh, it's already been 16 minutes. So sorry guys. I actually ended up hearing my voices say that gangsters are the good guys and cops are the bad guys, and to believe the gangsters, and that the cops really wanted me to be in hell. And I'm just like, what's going on? Like, I don't understand. And I like eventually I thought I was supposed to die there and go to heaven, and that's like what I had heard my voices tell me, like, this is the end, like you gotta, figure out a way to transfer over into the next life. So I'm laying there and I'm freaking out, and I'm like thinking like, this doesn't seem right, like I don't trust gangsters at all anyways, and I trust cops. And so I said, like, like, forget this, like, if I'm gonna be alive, like, I'm not gonna go to heaven now, like I need to stay here and I need to save people. So I ran out of the truck, and it was like full daylight then, and I looked over as I was getting out of the truck, and I saw like 2 little kids playing in the front yard, looking at me like, what is going on? Why is there a lady in a camouflage head to toe climbing out of the back of Dad's truck, And so I just saw them and freaked out and just took off running, and I ended up dropping off like my backpack at that other gangster guy, the one that sexually assaulted me, at his godfather, or his child's godfather's house. I left my stuff in the back of his truck, and I changed out of my getup and left my dad's coveralls and the mask there in the back of the truck, and was just wearing what I had underneath of it, like a pair of leggings and a shirt. Excuse me. And anyways, sorry, I started just running back towards my car, and I was pretty far, so I was just going in and out of alleyways, and I saw like a book, or I saw a shopping cart full of books. This probably doesn't make any sense to the story, but there was one that I grabbed that said something about rainbows that was on the top, and I was just thinking like, God's with me, the rainbows, He's showing me the rainbows. And I'm going across the way, and I was like so far from the car still, and there was this truck coming, and I'm trying to wave him down like, I need help, and he's like, are you okay? Do you need a ride? And I said, yes, I do, to my car up here a little ways down the road. And so it was this old man, and he had like white hair, and I thought he looked kind of like God. And then I get in the car and he's like, "Oh, are you ready for this BJ?" And he said the words. And I was thinking, like, is that God, like, talking about them catching the truck that I was just laying in on fire and exploding me in my car into the river and making it look like I died. And then I was also thinking, like, maybe he thinks I'm like a prostitute. And I freaked out, and I just like opened the truck door and just tucked and rolled, and then ran back to my car. And luckily he didn't follow me then, but the next day, I don't know why, but I was in my room in the morning and I felt like I needed to go back to the airport to get away from like something, my dad or something who I thought hurt my mom or was trying to hurt my mom, even though he wasn't. It was just like stuff I had heard in my head. But so I started walking from my house towards the airport, and it took me like an hour and a half to get there because it was so far away. And I walked up to like the fence at the airport, and I'm looking at these little Cessna planes, and I'm thinking, like, I think I'm supposed to get in one of those and like get out of here, or climb into the one that this guy was in. And luckily I didn't. Instead, I just kind of kept walking, and I was hearing things like, "This is the end of the world and you have to get out of here, and what are you gonna do?" And so I just kind of kept walking, and I ended up by the river again. But this time it was like I was almost going into like the wooded area of the river. And as I get to the river, there's like a park area, and there's like some random guy, and he just goes like, "Come on, go this way, this down the road here. This is where you're supposed to go." And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, like maybe this guy is trying to help me. Maybe God sent him, or maybe it's like someone in the military trying to help me escape so I can go into witness protection. I don't even know. But I was following down the trail, and then I ended up like, someone else told me like, "Go this way and hide in here." And so I was like hiding in the wooded area right there. And I looked down at the ground, and there was this like huge like tapeworm looking thing like climbing up on like the dirt trying to get up to me. And I freaked out, and I ran up a tree, and the first two things I thought was like wood, worm. And I was thinking like wormwood, and I was like, I didn't really understand what that meant at the time, but that was just in my head. And then as I'm up in the tree, I hear that these aliens or something talking, like they told me they're aliens. And this is all in my head. They're saying they're aliens, and that this guy that I know was an alien also, and so was a guy that I used to like, and that they were both gonna die in a month, and that I shouldn't be afraid. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, okay, like maybe they really are aliens and they're gonna die in a month. And so I didn't really know what to think. And then eventually I got out of the tree and I walked over towards the river, and I'm thinking like, oh, I wish I had a bathing suit to get in the river, because I feel like I'm supposed to cross that river. So instead, a boat came down the river, and they all looked at me in the boat, and they kept driving, and then they were still looking at me like as they were getting further down. And this guy was in the boat, and he had an umbrella, and it wasn't raining, and I'm thinking, what's going on? And he just kind of ducks down in the boat with the umbrella over his head. And eventually it made me think of this poem where I said like, umbrella attack, like that this bird was gonna die through an umbrella attack, which didn't really make sense at the time. But eventually I had been standing in that area for quite a while. I was starting to lose my mind a little bit more because it had been so long, and it was starting to get like kind of dark out, and I was just scared and falling asleep standing up, and I didn't know what to do. So I just kind of started walking back towards the road, and then back towards like out of airport district. And then I was like on the main road again, and I called the guy who had been giving me money whenever I was homeless, um, even though he had said that he was going to R me, to R me, not to the army. And he gave me a ride home. And so I just kind of went back home. Nobody knew I had really left, and that was that. But a year or two later, at the exact spot where the guy went with the umbrella, like underneath this bridge, that was actually where my best friend unalived himself. And so I was thinking, I hope it wasn't the gangsters that did that to him. Like, I don't know what happened, but then someone, when he had unalived himself, I guess he wrote down something in a notebook, and for whatever reason, the people that found him there found that notebook, and then they wanted to give it to somebody, and I was the person they wanted to give it to. And I didn't understand like what was going on, but I just knew that around that time I had been just crying and praying for answers constantly, thinking like, why did he unalive himself? Was it because of something I said or did? I don't know, but I got the notebook and I was reading in it, and it had something to do with something totally off the wall that I didn't have anything to know about or know anything about. And so I just eventually like told his dad and then gave it to the cops. But yeah, through all of that, God kept me alive, and even more so when I was having more spiritual warfare. It's already 27 minutes. Okay, this is going to be like a 5-part movie then. So, later on, I guess I could do this one tomorrow, but I guess I'll just try to finish it tonight. So, I was at my house living with that guy who had unalived himself, and this is before that had happened. And me and him weren't really speaking at the time, but I had liked him for a while. And one night we had gone out and smoked weed. Sorry, I just feel weird saying that, like I'm gonna get like banned or something from YouTube if I say it. But I had went to the park with him, or to this place that we called like our little park, and I had came back at home to where we were both staying, and at my parents' house, of course. Sorry. And I had laid down, and I was just laying there thinking like, I want to get in his head and see like what he's thinking or what he's dreaming right now, because he went to the other room and he was laying down on the couch trying to go to sleep. And so I had this like experience, like an out of body experience, where I went into a time warp. It was almost like a parallel universe or something like that, like a whirlpool. And I was going through that whirlpool, and then I ended up on the other side, like, and saw him there, and I was talking to him, and he was like, "You created this place, like." In your mind, you're escaping from spiritual war that was going on, and you came over here to Earth to get away from it all, and you created it all in your mind. And he said that he was all the men there, and that I was supposed to come back, and that I had to unalive myself, and that was the only way I could come back into the real world, which was like the spiritual world. And so I was like, I don't believe you, like, you have to prove this to me. And he said, like, I said, like, kiss me and I'll believe it, and then I'll do that. And then right then I kind of just woke back up in the real world, Earth, and he was kissing me. And it was weird because I hadn't kissed him before then, except for he was my first kiss when I was like in junior high, and this was like 2017 or 18, like I don't really know. Um, and so I was like, once he eventually unalived himself, I was concerned, and I was like, did it have something to do with that like dream thing I had? And I just didn't know what to believe, but for whatever reason, I was still here, still alive. God was still looking out for your girl, because you know she's over here having these crazy thoughts and crazy experiences. So I saw a voodoo doll in the house when I was staying at my parents' house, and I thought that maybe the guy who unalived himself had made it against me or something, because I knew it was my hair in the doll, and I didn't actually know it was a doll first. I actually had to look it up online, and Google said that it was like a voodoo doll or type thing, and it was really two sticks in like a cross pattern, and then around the center, the cross point, there was hair wrapped in an infinity symbol, and it was my hair because it was like blonde and brown and blue at the same time in different areas. And so for a long time I was thinking like, man, someone's doing like witchcraft on me, like I don't know who it is. And it was really getting in my head and really messing with my sanity even more so. So I was like, one time my mom was like, oh, the washer and dryer, like the washer doesn't work because the hot water isn't working anymore. It's been a while since it worked. And I was washing my clothes one day after the whole voodoo doll thing, and I was hearing these voices like say stuff about me, and I was thinking like, oh, like I'm gonna try to get away with like being sneaky so that I could go and do something, like I don't know exactly what I thought, but it was something along the lines of like, oh, I'm a bad person and I need to be punished or something like that. And I put my hand in the water at the washer, and then it turned hot, and I was thinking my hands are in hot water, or I'm in hot water. And so I didn't know if that was some voodoo thing or if it was God telling me that I was in trouble. So I guess once I moved out of the house into my own place, when I was there, my voices and everything got even worse. And this is all like right when I was trying to just be back in the church. So I knew what spiritual warfare was, but I never really had it before when I was younger. So all the stuff that kept happening to me was just really, really scary and really weird. I didn't understand any of it, but I just felt like I was getting constantly attacked. So I was thinking maybe it was the guy that unalived himself. Maybe it was his voodoo doll, and I know he made a dream catcher for my mom, so I went and I got that dream catcher and I just ripped it up into pieces. There was like beads on it, and I put the beads on one pile and then put all the string from the dream catcher on another pile. And I had learned on Google to like tie it or to nail it to a tree or to a piece of wood in order to get whatever powers were in that thing to go away. And so I'm like, okay, like I guess I'll do that. And I ended up nailing like all the string and the rest of like whatever was supposed to be made in it besides the beads. I nailed that to a piece of wood, and like I still felt like all the spiritual warfare was going on and like my voices, and I didn't really understand that I had even had schizophrenia then. So I was just like, maybe this will get rid of it. And I eventually took all the beads and split them up, and I threw uh, like a 13th of, or a 10th, or I don't know how many, but I like a portion of the pile into the front lawn of a church. And then I went to another church. I went to about 10 different churches in town and threw the beads out there into the front yard or the lawn, thinking that, like, oh, if it's like demonic people or people doing witchcraft, maybe they can't go onto church grounds because whatever, I maybe seen something in a movie thinking that. And then my crazy self, I went with the rest of the stuff with like the string and the tied to, nailed to a board, and I ended up nailing that to the train tracks over across town, thinking that, like, if they are ever gonna come to try to get that stuff back and do their voodoo or witchcraft against me again, that they'd have to like out jump a train or outrun a train. And I knew that they wouldn't do that, so I did that. And then right after I did that, I kind of freaked out and was like, oh my gosh, what happens if like a train comes and that piece of wood like throws the train off the track? Like, I'll kill like hundreds of people, unalive hundreds of people. And I was freaking out, and so I went and told on myself to the cops again, and they said, like, I don't care what kind of religion you are, a part of, but just don't do that again because you might hurt people. So they took care of it, and I went on my way, and things were still happening bad around me. Like, the TV was talking to me and like making fun of things I had done in the past, like picking my nose and doing whatever I did with that. And the radio was like, every time I'd change a station, like I'd hear a new word from a song, and all those words that through the changes like added up to like a sentence. And I was just like, is something like trying to talk to me through the radio? And I didn't know if it was God or something evil. So I just kind of kept living my life, and eventually I was still living by myself, and it was at the beginning of C19, and I was scared, and I remember people were putting ribbons on their door, like red ribbons on their door for the nurses, and it was like during Lent, and I was thinking, oh, this must be something to do with like when they put the BLOOD on the door from the lamb, that whenever the evil came across the land, it kept them safe. And so I was thinking everybody who doesn't put that red ribbon on their door might perish. I'm trying to get around the filters of the words that you can't say on YouTube. So I don't know, a lot of weird stuff was happening. I ended up like making some spaghetti, and it like moved in the microwave, and when I took it out, it was like a giant red sea, and I was thinking, God parted the Red Sea, because it was like an actual circle at first, and then part of it just kind of came like this. And then I thought this is all because I ate an apple during Lent. And so all this stuff was happening, and I was thinking that like all of it had to do with the apple and with the curse that the snake in the Garden of Eden had done against Eve for when she ate the apple, and how it kind of just cursed mankind. So I was thinking, now I know exactly what it is. It's evil, and that's what's happening. And people kept saying these evil things to me, and I thought it was like the Smex Twafikers. I was trying to say it weird. I thought it was them or the gangster people, like coming into their bodies and just doing weird things, saying weird things to me. Like, I thought I was getting like tortured for like however many years from my parents, even though it was just in my head, because I don't know what had happened, but it was just more voices, and everything around me just felt like couldn't sleep because the sprinklers were continuously on, and I felt like it was like water torture or something. Probably can't say that on YouTube. But all in all, like, I ended up just saying, I'm going to try to fight it at the source. Like, I'm going to love the sinner, hate the sin, and I'm going to find it all at its source and then attack that. So eventually I move out of my place and back into my parents' house because I couldn't handle being alone by myself because all this stuff was going on, and I needed somewhere safe to stay. So I moved back in, and one day I was just sitting there, and I heard this like rattle in my room, and I thought it was like a snake. And then I was like, oh, it's the devil. I know what it is because I just saw like a demon in my closet like a week before. So I was freaking out, and I was having a panic attack, and I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, I need to like trap him or something and give it all to God, because I had previously, after moving back in, there was these two Raggedy Ann dolls that were like looking over this way, and it looked really creepy, and I threw them in this like trunk, this chest kind of. It was like an ottoman that opened up, and I threw them inside of there because I was like scared of them, and I thought they were haunted. And the next day came back and was like, oh, I don't know what I was thinking. And I took the dolls out, and then when I looked at them this time, their eyes had been sewn shut, and I was like, oh wow, what happened? Like, I must have really gave those to God, and he took care of it for me. So when I heard this rattle and I thought it was a snake, and thought it was a devil, I knew that I had to do something to get rid of him. So I tried to call my therapist, and she wasn't there, and surprisingly there was another therapist there who wanted to pray over me. And then we prayed over the situation, and after I got off the phone, I looked over at my Bible, and the front of my Bible, there's like these three like kind of squiggly lines on there, and they were just like bouncing around. And I thought, that's the devil, he's trying to get in the book. And I was like, I'll give it to God. And I opened up the book and then slammed it shut, and thought like, God, please take this from me. But I noticed when I had opened the Bible, the page number that I opened it to was 666. So I don't know, but I felt like, okay, now it's something that God can handle, and he'll get rid of him. And then not long after that, things just started coming back to normal. My mind started getting a little bit better, and things stopped happening to me that were scary or weird. I really have no idea. But I mean, even for a while when I lived at my other place by myself, I had still thought that it was a voodoo doll. And so I had turned all my mirrors around and covered the whole house in salt, like put it around the house. I just tried anything I could for so long. And the main thing that helped me was praying with that therapist guy. And after which, everything just kind of went back to normal. So I probably have more I could talk about, but for the most part, that's my story. And I guess if God hadn't been there the whole time, I don't know if I would have made it out alive, because I went through a lot of really weird stuff and a lot of stuff I didn't understand. And somehow I'm here now, and I have, a sound mind for the most part. So I thank God for everything that he got me through, and for protecting me in my comings and my goings. So I hope that you guys can learn that even when you're going through the worst of the worst, whether it be spiritual warfare or something out on the streets, just know that if you keep praying, God will get you through it. He'll get you through anything, just like he got me through everything. So I guess this is it. It's been fun, but I should probably go. Have a good day. Sorry, bye.